Ah, okay. E. Okay. I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion. As I heal, I'm finding peace. I kept others at a distance, those who lived life differently. I saw the world in right or wrong, but they're all humans just like me. I stepped out and love expanded us, and then melted away. Beauty found in every difference. As I listened, I'm amazed. I saw danger in my questions. I took captive all my thoughts. Certainty was my salvation till I questioned what was taught. Now my eyes are wide in wonder. Mind set free now to discern. I might not have all the answers, but I have all this life to learn. I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion. As I heal, I'm finding peace. I had to finish that song because it's one of my favorite.
Yeah. All right, now I'm unmuted. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Woven. It's fine. We're just going to laugh our way through it. So today we just have a couple of things on the announcement front. Brian Hull is with us, so thank you for coming. Yeah. And then next week, actually, Susan Warren, who helped Beaumont become an affirming community, will be here talking. And then Erica will be back on the 19th. And that's really it on the way of announcements, but Charles has a couple things that he wants to announce about plays.
So just a couple of drama opportunities for you. One is actually here in Lexington, the Kentucky Theater. On Thursday, May 30th at 7:15, a movie called Under the Southern Cross, The Art and Legacy of Henry Faulkner. He's a gay artist from Lexington, very well known. The movie is produced by the person that did Last Gospel, The Pagan Babies, which was a documentary on the LGBT scene in basically Lexington. So that's Thursday, May 30th, 7:15. The next Pandora production, My Mother's Lesbian Jewish Wiccan Wedding, is running May, I believe, 10th through the 25th, so check the dates on that. That's in Louisville. We're going to see it on the 18th, and also that same day there's a play called Crowns. This is put on by the group that partnered with Pandora to do Kinky Boots. The description of what they say on their website, the essential story of Crowns is that of a young African-American girl trying to figure out her identity, her place in the world, and her place in her own culture. Yolanda is a tough girl from Brooklyn who is proud of her status as a true New Yorker. But when her brother Teddy is shot, Yolanda's mother sends her to South Carolina to live with her grandmother. Yolanda begins a journey that will take her, link her own experiences to stories of her relatives, her history, and her people. Mother Shaw, Yolanda's grandmother, welcomes her granddaughter into a circle of female spirits who come to life as Wanda, Mabel, Jeanette, and Velma. As they prepare for church on a Sunday morning, they tell stories of their own connections to hats as a part of the rich African-American heritage. But Yolanda defends her affinity for hats as headwear, and headwear is her own thing. After a dramatically inspiring church service, Yolanda is figuratively baptized into the legacy of these women and all the ancestors who have gone before her. And there's supposed to be a lot of really good gospel music, and that one is directed by Tyler Tate, who played Lola, the star drag queen in Kinky Boots. So that would be a great time. That's May 18th at 2. And for anybody that didn't hear, the Methodist Church at General Conference just reversed their ban on gay marriage and gay pastors. So proud to be a Methodist today. There you go.
Yes. Thank you, Charles. And we just want to say a special welcome to all of you here, regardless of your race, your gender identity, or your socioeconomic status. Where you are with God or not, you're welcome and you belong here. And we're just going to start the service today with a prayer for collective care. Loving God, we confess that we are so accustomed to pushing through an exhausted state that we come to expect the same from those nearest to us. We mirror the demands made of us and disassociate from the reality that these demands have harmed us, left us anxious and unwell. Reorient our souls towards more than self-care. We want more for one another than the same expectations that haunt us, the same brutal experience of living within the systems of this world. Free us from resentment and envy as we bear witness to the prophets in our lives who practice rest and boundaries well. Let them be our guides into deeper freedom. Help us to never get used to being used. We were made for more, and together we possess the mysterious power of regeneration wrapped up in our bones. May it be so.
This is a song, actually a hymn, that was rewritten by someone who, like me, had a lot of mixed experiences with church. So you might recognize the tune to be Come Thou Fountain, but the words are different. So I hope that this song washes over you, brings you peace, hope, love, healing, whatever it is you need right now. I hope that it can do that. And if not, that's okay. I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. And now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion. As I heal, I'm finding peace. I kept others at a distance, those who lived life differently. I saw the world in right or wrong, but they're all humans just like me. I stepped out and love expanded us, and them melted away. Beauty found in every difference. As I listen, I'm amazed. I saw danger in my questions. I took captive all my thoughts. Certainty was my salvation till I questioned what was taught. Now my eyes are wide in wonder, mind set free now to discern. I might not have all the answers, but I have all this life to learn. I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion. As I heal, I'm finding peace. This next song I had started writing when I would still call myself a Christian and really mean it. And I've had kind of a complicated relationship with the song because it's based in a scripture. I don't remember the exact psalm, but it was the one that says, "Be still," and trust in God, or something along those lines. So these lyrics have been changed so many times, and probably will be changed many times in the future, but this is the current iteration. Be still, my broken heart, and be restored. For the love you think you've lost, you'll find rest you'll find once more. Oh, be still, my worried mind, and be at peace. For the pain you're holding near one day will cease. Oh, and I'll say, be still, be still, be still, be still, be still, be still, be still. Don't rush what you don't see. Be still, enjoy this peace, for tomorrow's now today, and yesterday was all the same. Don't rush what you don't see. Be still, enjoy this peace, for tomorrow's now today. Yes, yesterday was all the same. Be still, be still, be still. Be still, my broken heart, and be restored. For the love you think you've lost, you'll find once more. Oh.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Of course.
And great to have my dear friend Brian here today. Brian, can I join you? Brian and I he's been my best friend for more than a decade now. Yeah. That's kind of cool. That's great. Yeah. And, oh, this one. Yep.
Thanks for not giving up on me.
Just trying to picture what that would look like. I can't do it. As you might have guessed, thank you so much, Danny and Logan. You might have guessed that we're headed towards talking about rest today. And so to back up from that question, one of the things that we've wondered, you know, Brian and I have been wondering out loud stuff for a long time. One of them is it better to be a Christian than to not be a Christian? And can we talk about why we might want to be a Christian without it denigrating anyone else? So we'll start with there. So Brian, is it better to be a Christian? And if so, can we talk about it without it denigrating anyone else?
Yes.
So then, if that were true.
Yeah, I do think this is an important question, and I think so my bias is yes, and my bias is, most of my life I've been a Christian, and I think there are times when I've done a healthier version of that, and times I've done an unhealthier version of that.
Yeah, right.
But that's my bias, and that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from. So just to be honest about that, right?
How much was where you were in church dictated how healthy your Christian faith was?
Do you mean?
Well, so for instance, I grew up in a very conservative
Right.
Christian church,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of ways. The ways that the church was unhealthy were the same ways I was unhealthy as a Christian.
Mm.
And later, when I was a part of a church here in Lexington, there were some beautiful parts of that,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some super unhealthy parts of that.
Right.
And the super unhealthy parts were the same ways that I was unhealthy as a Christian.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My pause on this is a couple things. One, my version of healthy now is different than my version of healthy
Yeah,
before,
for
and
sure.
probably will be different in the future, right?
For
So I'm
sure.
just saying that evolves over time.
So we might be really unhealthy right now, but we
might,
don't know
exactly.
it.
Right. Right.
So it's okay.
Right. Yeah. So like the 8 cheeseburgers I ate this week, I'm sure is healthy. Right. Yeah. There are parts we know are unhealthy now, but but I do think, yeah, so that's my hesitancy a little bit in that. And so one of the things that's been really shaping for me has been the community that I've been able to live into. And even though maybe my church growing up, for example, I would make different decisions than they do now, but the fact that they accepted me and cared for me, I mean, they literally helped raise me, like that to me is an incredible gift. So I don't want to just discount that, if that makes some sense. But yeah, there's no doubt that there's some things that we kind of were given, right, that I accepted as a child, as you do, right, because you're just trying to make sense of life and you're trying to build something and make sense of the world. And so that, undoubtedly, there are some parts of that put some shackles that I had to kind of work through, if that makes sense.
So when I was a kid, Sabbath meant a certain thing.
Right.
So Brian and I have decided to have, I haven't told them this, but we've decided to have a little contest to see who could be the most pharisaical in the way that they grew up as far as Sundays are concerned. All right, so I'll start
Okay.
the ball rolling.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah.
When I was a kid,
When I was a kid.
we were allowed to play sports on Sunday afternoons as long as we didn't keep score.
Which, of course, you still kept score. in your
Well, of
head.
course we kept score.
Yeah. Well,
How do you play a game without it keeping score?
so we could not. We needed to rest, but we could watch sports, but we couldn't watch really anything else on Sundays. It was like,
Were they keeping score of the sports you were watching?
I'm pretty sure it was on the screen. Yeah. So you win that one. Yeah. What about? Did you have to dress a certain way?
Oh, yeah. So one Sunday, I went to church without a coat and tie. I know. I know. I know. And my mom let me.
She let you.
She did let me.
Did your
But
dad?
I came home, and I was with, I don't know why, but Sterling Moore was with me. And Sterling, of course, had on a coat and tie. And we came home, and we were talking right after church, you know. And I said something about how great it was that I didn't wear a shirt and tie today. And Sterling just looked at me and was like,
Oh, he was ashamed of you.
he was ashamed.
Or for you.
For me. He was ashamed for me. And my mom said something to the effect of, yeah, I just don't think that was a good idea. And I'm like, well, what do you think, Sterling? She's just like, how about you? How'd you dress?
So I could go to church and not wear a tie. That was okay. But we had Sunday night service. You had Sunday night service?
absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember the day I think I was in like 8th grade. And it was Sunday night, and I was getting ready to go. We're getting ready to go to church. And I come out of my room, and, you know, all the family's kind of gathering to go get in the car. And I had on a T-shirt, like with a print T-shirt. It was a Detroit Pistons T-shirt.
Oh, that's
And my dad
sports.
just looked at me and was like, no. and I just had to turn around and go back. I could have fought, but it wouldn't have mattered. Right, I wouldn't have won.
You were gonna lose that one.
Yeah. So I do remember that. Yeah. So, but yeah.
So, how
Yeah.
many times a church
Yeah.
does a real Christian go to church?
Oh, when I was growing up, at least 3 times a week. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Like, I could have put this behind my back, and we would have known.
We would have known 3, at least 3.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
In fact, one year they moved baseball practice to Wednesday evening, and my parents are like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. They didn't say that word.
They might not have said that, but that's what certainly they meant.
Yes, they said it.
Yeah.
That's they. Right. Right. Yeah, 3 times at
Yeah,
least.
3.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening.
night. Yeah, it was the same thing for me. This is great. You guys will appreciate this because I'm sitting down, but you've seen me enough to know how tall I am and what a large individual I am. So when I was in 4th grade, I was a starting offensive lineman. I was a starting offensive tackle on my Pee Wee football team.
Wow.
I was really good. And they started having practice on Wednesday. And
No more
I couldn't
Pee-wee.
go to practice
No
anymore.
more Pee Wee football.
And then, I got to still stay on the team, but I got demoted to the 2nd team. From gold team to blue team. It was quite
Yeah, we all know what that means.
Yeah.
It means fail.
Yeah.
The fail color.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. But I was still one of the best offensive linemen.
But my parents, and they had some stuff to back this up, I suppose, but they said, if you want to stay married, you go to church with your spouse 3 times a week. When you start going twice a week, the marriage is going to fail.
Oh.
Once, and it's don't even have a chance.
Oh.
They
Yeah.
they believe that.
I don't know if my parents ever talked about your church attendance and your marriage life.
Yeah, no,
Coming together.
they're
I don't-
completely connected.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a big deal that we observed Sabbath. Like that was a.
And
there
by
was-
Sabbath, what we mean is Sunday.
Yeah,
We don't mean Jewish Sabbath as Saturday. We mean, I remember.
It was a prescribed thing. Yeah.
Yes, I'm in camp meeting, and the man says, our grandfathers talked about the holy Sabbath. Our fathers talked about the Sabbath.
Yeah.
We talk about the weekend.
It's all downhill. From
It's all, that's it. Like, that
Clearly,
was,
yeah.
this was the clear steps to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to have to explain camp meeting to all of them at some point. But
Oh, wow. How many of you have never been to camp meeting?
camp meeting.
I mean tent revivals, camp meeting.
Okay.
You haven't? Yes, whoever, in the summer, who hasn't been to a camp?
Okay.
Okay, just a few. Yeah, good for you, Sarah. You Episcopalians don't do this. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Now, the whole point of this little thing is the idea of what if rest is good? And what if we can separate what it means to have healthful rest from all the trappings that it might be associated with in our religion?
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
would healthy rest look like?
Right. Right. And the converse of that is also a question. What does healthy sort of work and purpose look like? Right.
Yeah, because it is true that some people work too much.
Yeah.
And it's also true that some people rest too much.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is some of the tension that we're living in, that I think this makes this conversation difficult. And this is why, to come back to your initial question, I think this way of Jesus is the best kind of life. If we actually live it in the best kind of ways, I think the ways that he practiced himself and meant for us to, then I really do think it's a better way of life. And so it is sort of the appropriateness of rest and work and things like that. So for me, the biggest thing is the question of identity. What brings us value? So I do this all the time. I'll ask a question. If I'm in a room with people, I'll say, like, tell me about yourself. But you have to talk about yourself, but you can't tell me what you do as a job, and you can't talk about, like, your hobbies. So I just want you to tell me about yourself.
I got nothing.
Yeah. It becomes really hard. Right?
I have hobbies and I have a work. I have family.
Okay. So that's one place. Okay. But oftentimes our family, at least if we have kids and when they're younger, our family becomes what we do as well. Like, it's activity, right? Like, I go to my kid's baseball game, or I go to their play or whatever. And so if we take all that away, who are we, right? Now, I'm not asking that question to put you all into some existential crisis right this second.
Because I am feeling it. I am this close to the edge.
But it is a really important question, I think. And I think, we've talked a little bit about this before, but I think, the creation narrative is interesting. And again, I don't care whether you take it all as literal or figurative or whatever in between.
I actually do care. Okay. None of it's literal. Okay, there we go.
But for me, I think it's really important, the creation narrative, that it does talk about God resting. And I think that's important, not just in the ways that when I was growing up, they talked about it as, okay, so therefore it's obviously one day and you have to do it those, yeah, right. But I think it's important because part of what I think it's telling us and showing us is that God's identity doesn't come from what he does. So in other words, God can rest and he's still God. And God can work really hard and he's still God. But his identity is not formed by his doing, right? His godness is just because he is God. In the same way, we're created in that image, right? Which brings us all kinds of questions like, am I me if I'm not doing stuff? Do I have value? Do I matter if I don't have all this stuff?
Yeah. So what would a healthy identity look like?
Before we continue, I have to say that I am really good at talking about this and not near as good at living it.
Yeah.
Okay? I was hoping my wife would come.
We call that a hypocrite.
Yeah. So, right. So I was hoping my wife would be able to be here. She's not feeling well, so she couldn't come, just so she could just.
You notice my wife isn't here.
Yeah. She could come. She could, every once in a while, she could say something like that. But anyway. So I just to name, I don't do this perfectly by any stretch. And I have rhythms and seasons, I think I do it better than others. But I do think there's something about understanding and taking a break from our work to recognize that our value doesn't come from that. Like, in other words, to put it another way, we are valuable, period. Full stop.
Full stop.
And maybe that's worth this whole coming out here today. It's just that, like, you are worth, period.
Yeah.
And what's weird is, this is how we've got it so flipped around, I think, in our culture, that we just, it's embedded that we have to earn what we already have. Like, just think about that for a second. Like, if I said to John right now, that's your shirt, right? You're not borrowing that from somebody?
Well, maybe.
Oh, okay. Is that your watch?
No, this is my shirt.
Okay, all right, that's your shirt. So if I said to you, okay, that's fine if you want to have that shirt, but you've got to earn it. You've got to make me really happy today in order to wear that shirt. You're like, what are you talking about? That's already my shirt. That's stupid, right? But this is exactly what we do with our worth and our value. We try to earn what we already have. Like, do you see how messed up that is? Like,
yeah, that's right.
You see, that's such
because
a
the
weird
value
twist.
is already there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
And so I think our culture tells us over and over again that we have to earn that. And that's why rest matters, because what rest allows us to do is to stop and trust that maybe just maybe there's something bigger going on. And that's two sides. One of it is this, and I'm sorry if I'm going to hurt your feelings here for a second, but you're not that big a deal. In fact, just turn to a neighbor and say that. You'll enjoy this. You're not that big a deal. Go ahead. Some of you are like, I'm not turning to my wife.
I'm not
and saying
saying that. No, it's not happening.
But on the other side, you are a really big deal, and you matter.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's true. Like what we learn when we rest is that stuff that we do does not define us. And if we can trust that maybe, and whatever your hangups are, like God will actually take care of that stuff, and He can do it without you.
So here's the complex part, I think.
Yeah, good.
Because in one sense, our value doesn't change. The phrase we use is you're of inestimable value. And your value doesn't change by what you look like, what you can do, or where you come from. None of those define your value.
And your potential doesn't matter either.
No, that's
quote
right.
Unquote, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we have this, that is your value, unchangeable, immutable.
Right.
And on the other, the complex part of what makes me me is also identity. So I am husband, father. You are straight. You are male or trans or whatever. I mean, those are part of our identity. Those are what make us sort of who we are. And the trick somehow to me is, how do we hold that in one hand and in the other hand hold this immutable value? Because I think I was with a guy and he said, well, the problem I have with the gays is they put their identity in something other than Christ. So, the proverbial, yeah. I know. I even saying it does, right, hurts. And so at one hand, we really want to say, well, actually, that is part of who you are. It's a good thing that you have identity in your sexuality, in your gender, in your nationality even. I'm American. Now, I don't believe that that's the best way or the right way, but it is what I am. What?
I thought you were getting ready to say, but I'm soon to be Canadian.
So if a certain person gets elected, there's a good chance that a bunch of us become Canadians.
Oh, Canada. I know all the words. I've been brushing up.
I've thought so many cases, so many times, if the Scandinavians just well, actually they do speak English great, but
It just needs to be warmer. That's all.
And the winter needs to be lighter. But if they could fix that problem, then I think I'm in.
Global warming's coming. It's going to be fine.
The weather is going to change.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I am those things.
Right.
That's the complex part of what an identity is.
Right. Right.
And it doesn't affect my value.
Right. Right.
And I think that's the message of God.
Yes. 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 Yeah. So, yeah. Here's where I'm thinking like three ways, but the one that just quickly comes to mind is this is sort of so some of us sort of live in this world where like, okay, well, maybe I'm not a workaholic, and so I'm doing great. But if we can be honest for a second, like we all have our versions of slavery. Is that fair to say? Like we have our addictions. Can I say that out loud? Can I admit that?
Oh, yeah, no, we're all about addiction.
And so just to think for a second, what does social media, well, we're all checking. That reminds me. My mom texted.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Cavs fans say.
So what's interesting, though, is, so what is social media all about? Whether you like it or not, it is like the genius of it is it is behavior modification. They have figured it out, right? So sorry if you don't know this and I'm destroying your world, but you are being controlled and they know how to make it so that it rewards you in the right ways and entices you in the right ways. And most of the way they do that is through comparison, right? That's pretty much what it's about. You're either comparing your ideas to somebody else's. Well, thank goodness I don't vote that way because I'm better than them.
Which we are. Sorry, that didn't help, did it?
That was great.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was perfect.
There is this thing called tax exemption, and if you say the wrong
The church is in danger.
What did you call me earlier?
No, but as long as I don't say the person's name.
As long as you don't endorse one or the other.
Right.
Well, anyway, but the point is, right, that we live in this sort of, I think, trapping of this comparison game. Which, so if the idea of identity is what you just said,
Yeah.
what that takes from us when we start comparing ourselves to whatever else. Like, so this tells me all the time, I'm not fast enough, I'm not good looking enough, I only have one ab instead of 8, you know. Right,
It's a very healthy app.
right, and so forth, right? So, like, it tells me I'm not enough all the time.
Right, that's right.
And it allows, just if we pause and think about it, we all can say, yeah, that's right. But we still today are going to go back and look, right? We're going to go back. And part of what the frustration with me in that is, I don't think it's all evil, but I'm just saying what that does is threaten our very identity. Because then all of a sudden I'm comparing myself.
That's
Or
right.
at least I'm not as bad as so-and-so. Or at least I wish I was as handsome or a good singer or could play piano like Danny or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like that is poison
Yeah.
to
that's
our
right.
identity and to resting in who we are, right? So that just leads us to say more about I have to do more in order to be what I'm told I should be,
Yeah, that's right.
instead of being able to pause and rest in who God really is and God's created us to be. Just like, I don't know how all of you are, and I don't know your relationship with God, but let's just assume for a second that you have a friend that you feel like you can really be friends with. Like John is this for me. Like, I can be whatever, and some days I'm saying really lots of bad words, and some days I'm crying, and some days I'm really godly and saintly or whatever, right? But
Well,
I
usually that's-
I can be all of that. Like, I feel really free being myself with John, right? Because I know he loves me and cares for me. And what I think God is and wants for us is to rest in that. That kind of relationship, that he sees us that way and he loves us that way. And even though other people, again, whether it's through social media or experience or whatever, other people have told us, no, God doesn't see you that way. That's not God's message. That's not God's rhythm. God's rhythm is you matter, period. Full stop. And you can rest in that.
I want to say, Brian and Carol came over for dinner last night, which they brought, so there's that. And they had this thought, just how grateful I was that when you came along my front walk there, I know you two so well that neither of them were judging my lawn that's this tall. I know them.
Yeah.
And I knew that was not something that was going to be in them.
Right.
And if we could think of God in those ways,
Yes.
like,
yes.
is it possible that God's even better than you?
So much better. Yeah.
You know?
Right. That's
Right? So you think
Right.
of your best friend.
Yes.
Is it possible that God's even better than
Yes.
that person?
Yes.
Less judgmental than that
Yeah.
person?
Yeah.
And live in that.
Yeah. And if we can just put everything aside for a minute, if we just believe that, isn't that good news? Like,
That is good news.
Isn't that
Yeah.
good news to be able to say,
Right.
I can just be here and be myself. And I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to perform. I just think it's, yeah. And so the Exodus narrative is so helpful to me in this way. So, okay, so where does Sabbath show up in the Bible? Of course, we know that God rests. We talked about that. But then it shows up again in this, after God frees these people from slavery, and they've been in slavery for a long time, like 300 to 400 years. Is that a long time?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And when you're a slave, what do? Whatever the master tells you to do,
work.
right?
That's right.
Yeah. You work, and your value comes only from your work.
That's right.
Right? So if I break my arm and I can't make bricks anymore, then I'm not valuable, and so they just get rid of you.
Right.
So that was ingrained into the Israelites for 300 to 400 years.
Wow.
And then he frees them from this, and they're still in. I mean, you can imagine, like, for all of us, we're kind of this way, right? Whether it's the comparison game on this, or the work I feel like is my identity, or my family that's my identity, or my whatever. It's ingrained in us that our value comes from performance. And so God is trying to help them live a better way. So he gives them these 10 words, these 10 commandments. And one of them is Sabbath.
Uh-huh.
And if you actually read that commandment.
Number 4 for any of you counting.
If you actually read that commandment, I think it's 20 verse 8, I think.
Okay, he tried to up. We're talking about comparison here.
But if you read that commandment, what's interesting in it is God basically starts that commandment by saying, you should be like me.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I rest.
That's right.
And you should rest.
Yeah.
Because that's freedom. That's the best way.
Yeah.
And you don't have to prove anything. And this is where, like, we were joking about our habits and our things we learned from our church, right? Growing up. This is where that, like, when we try to put laws on it, for lack of a better word, or prescribe what that looks like for every person, it just falls apart.
People tried it.
Yeah. Yeah, I told John this story. I still think it's funny. So when I was growing up, like, where I grew up was pretty conservative Christian in most of our neighborhood and school. Even if you didn't go to church, your kind of values were sort of built around that. And so I remember there was a guy in our neighborhood, when we would be coming home from church on Sunday sometimes, his garage door would be cracked open at the bottom like this much, and soapy water would be coming out from his garage because he was in his car washing his car, and he didn't want anybody to know that he was working on the Sabbath because that wasn't true Sabbath, right? And so
this is true for some of you.
Like,
this is really true. This is
this is performance. This is not resting. Now, maybe it was really relaxing for him to wash his car.
Maybe.
So just wash your car, you know?
Yeah.
But I think this is why, again, when we prescribe certain things, it just gets to be a mess.
And I love this idea of one of the essential ingredients of rest being not comparing. Like, isn't that kind of a profound idea? Because the reason we don't rest usually is because we're trying to get whatever done, you know, and if we could truly just rest. And a part of the ethos of Woven, for sure, is this idea of self-care. And we think it's a Christian idea. And this idea of rest, I think, works with the idea of not comparing.
Yeah, right. That's right. That's right. That's right. And so, yeah. But the other side of it is attention too. Like, if all I do is rest, then I don't actually live in the freedom that's given me to be who I really am.
Yeah, that's right.
And who I really am is created to do some stuff. Like, you have gifts that you need to, and you should be using.
That's right.
Not because it gives you value. It's an overflow.
It's
so in
actually
other
a
words,
gift to us.
What
to
you do
work.
should come out of your worth.
That's right. Not your worth out of.
Doesn't come out of what you do, right? So what you do should come out of your worth.
That's right.
And so what we do sometimes is and I know trusting God isn't easy, so I'm saying that like it kind of is, but I know it's not. But what we kind of do, whether we realize it or not, is say to God, yeah, I know you're kind of God and stuff like that, but do you understand how important I am? That you should have given me more time to get done the things that I need to get done.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. No, that's right.
What?
Yeah, just the 24 hours was not the right number. Like when God was spinning the earth,
Right.
it should be more hours.
Yeah.
Obviously.
He didn't, yeah, I have no idea what he was doing.
No,
He didn't understand our culture.
no. If he had only known,
Well, and plus I'm pretty important.
and there's that. Well, if not comparing is one of the central ingredients of rest, any other nitty-gritty way that I can talk about rest? I mean, one idea is to actually have a day a week that you don't work. I don't do that. I work some every day. But I don't know. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, this is just my story. It's not
Yeah.
everybody's story. But my story is that Sabbath saved my life. I mean, and for me it is, I try to find it 24 hours. So for me it's Saturday noon to Sunday noon. And I have to be, that's when it is now. I've lived in different times but for me, the reason for that is because everything I can touch can be work. Like, I mean, because these can come with us, right? Work can follow us anywhere we want, right? And so for me, I have to be able to be free, not to have to do that stuff, or it just creeps in. Yeah. So for me, I've just had to learn to do that. I have a friend, he's a pastor, and pastors are some of the worst at this.
Yeah.
In fact, I know we're almost out of time, so can I tell one story?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So he says this way, I'm going to tell you what he says, and then I'm going to tell you the story. He says that I can, if I break any of the 9 of the 10 commandments, then I'm going to lose my job. Like if I put an idol up to, whatever, Buddha or whatever in my house, I'm probably going to get fired, right? But if I break...
I have a Buddha Jesus in my office, by the way.
If I break the Sabbath, then I get promotion and more money, right? Because in our culture, we reward that so much. So he was living in that kind of rhythm, right? And so never not working. And so that actually has really negative connotations for your physical health as well, if you don't know, right? Some of you have been around long enough to know, some of you haven't, but I'm just telling you, it's going to break you at some point. And so it did. It broke him. Like he had like a significant physical event. My wife is an ER nurse, and if you're married to an ER nurse, it's great because they can help with everything. But it's also really bad if you want sympathy.
There's none.
Because you're like, oh, man, I've got a headache, and my wife Carol's like, well, I dealt with a guy who cut his leg off today, so what are you crying about? So my friend, he's a pastor, he's also married to an ER nurse. So he comes home and he says, honey, I'm not feeling good, and he starts talking about, and he said, I didn't think it was that big a deal until I saw her face, and then she was like, oh, here, lay down right here, and she was like being really nice and sympathetic, and he's like, I'm a dead man. But he had this serious event. So when all this happens, he's back in his doctor's office after all this hospital stay, all this stuff. And the doctor says, hey, you have to stop. Like, you have to stop. And he's like, but I don't know how. He's like, what do you do for a living? He's like, I'm a pastor. He said, well, don't you have a rule for this? Like, it's a Jewish surgeon, right? He's like, I'm pretty sure we share this, right? So he's like, yeah, I guess. So he's like, all right, so I will try to keep Sabbath. And he said, and this is why I think most of us don't do it, to be honest, is we don't know how. And so he said, so I didn't know what to do. He said, I knew if I was at home, I would pick up my phone or my computer or whatever. If I went to my office, there's no chance I wouldn't work. I didn't know where to go. So he said, I just went and stood out in a field all by myself. And I just yelled at God. This is the stupidest commandment you've ever given. Why would you do this? This is such a waste of time. Do you know all the things I could be doing? And he just started yelling at God. Like, here's the list of things that I should be doing right now. Like, just going after it, right? So then he goes home. Next week, same thing, right? He just keeps going out there. And he said, the 4th week I was out there, I fell asleep and I took a nap. He goes, I woke up and I was like, that was awesome. God, you still don't know what you're doing, but that was awesome. So then he says, like, I had to do it and learn how to do it. And somehow that saved his life. So I'm just saying, for me, my story is similar to that. I didn't have a physical, but I mean, I was this close from being completely done with, like, I went on a vacation with my family and I had the resignation letter written.
You.
Me, right? Before when I got home, my idea was I was going to turn in my resignation from ministry and leave the church altogether.
Wow. I don't know this story.
But God intervened through a spiritual director, through his Holy Spirit in a moment, and through my wife. And I learned to rest. God made me rest. They made me rest. And that saved my life. I believe that I think it saved my ministry. I think it saved my marriage. And I think it saved my life. I really do. So for me, I had to make that 24 hours. Not everybody does. I understand.
Yeah, right. It can look different for different people.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, what
And it
a
should.
rest looks like.
It should look different.
And it should, right, because we are different. The important part is that our identity doesn't come from it.
Yeah.
From what we do, and that we actually do this rest thing.
Yes. Yes.
So, Brian, thank you for coming in.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Thank you,
sharing with
guys.
us.
And he's a good God if we're willing to actually meet him.
Yeah, better than we thought.
Way better.
We're going to take a time. This is a kind of rest for us to do this together, come to the table together. So you can go to the back and get a cracker and some juice. Come back and bring it up here, and we'll take this together in a minute. So, as we take this, there's nothing magical about this. This is just a symbol that we are community together, and that we're community with the Holy Spirit. And so that's why we do it, to affirm this togetherness with Christ and with each other. us to rest. That it's sort of baked into your plan for us. In fact, we have to rest every night. And then you say, not just then, but rest more often. You are worth it. So we all here today hear from you that we are worth it, that we're worth it to you, and that we're worth it just innately, that we're worth the rest. Thank you. Thank you for our time here. Thank you for my friends in this community. Will you help all of us as we learn your ways, and as we learn your ways together. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Great to be here with all of you. Love you all deeply. I'll be gone for a couple weeks, and I'll be out of the country, but then I'll be back in America in a few weeks. So I'll see you then. Thanks for being here. Oh, and introduce yourself to Matthew right here. So thanks, everybody.